Welcome to the Loyalty Program Builders podcast, where together with the top industry experts, we discuss business and technical challenges of implementing and running loyalty programs. Loyalty programs are complex. That's why together with our guests, we make difficult processes easy to understand and provide actionable steps to reach your loyalty program goals. Subscribe to our newsletter and become a part of a community dedicated to loyalty program excellence. Hey everyone, today we're discussing personalization. The goal of this episode is to help you understand and start with personalization because, as our guest with a first degree in astrophysics puts it, engaging with customers in a relevant way need not be rocket science. Our guest is Gianfranco Cucciol, who has over 20 years of experience in CRM and personalization. He's had the pleasure of setting up Loyalty Card for PC World, running CRM programs for EasyJet and Compare the Market, redefining CRM for Disney, and collaborating with brands like BMW, Adidas, True Religion Jeans, Pernod Ricard, and many more. About 4 years ago, he was offered the opportunity to reset the CRM vision for Aesop. After 2 years, he joined the Natura & Co group as head of CRM and personalization across 4 brands: Aesop, Avon, The Body Shop, and Natura in Latin America. And for the last 6 months, he's been working directly with Avon International, helping them reset their CRM and personalization efforts. So without further ado, here's Gianfranco. Hi Gianfranco, great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
So when I was going through your bio, I found this one bit that really stuck with me because you said about your task as a person in charge of CRM that it was to continue the conversation with customers once they left the store.
Exactly.
So what is your, how do you approach CRM?
Well, so I think the approach, I mean, the example that you mentioned there is when I was, global head of CRM at Aesop, and there it was about, as you've just said, continuing that conversation. In fact, continuing that wonderful conversation that the customer has with the store consultant, which in 5 years ago in an Aesop store stopped once you left the store. So my task there was, as you said, to continue that conversation once the customer left the store, to make sure that they were happy with the products that they'd bought, and in fact, if anything, to try and encourage them to have a further conversation with the store itself. So that's my approach. It is about how do we continue the conversation between brand and customer, no matter where the conversation starts. If the conversation starts in store, great. If the conversation starts online, fine. If it starts in an app, great. Wherever the customer wants to start that conversation, the brand has to be ready to continue that through the channel of choice that the consumer, the customer, will at some point either overtly or covertly tell you that that's the channel that they want to talk to you through.
Great, because this actually gives you the sort of feeling of personal conversation. So
it does, yeah, and that's where you have that conversation around, do you always need personalization? Yeah, I think, and this is where, personalization comes in many guises, right? Sometimes it's called personalization, it's called segmentation, customization, optimization, recommendations, right? But I think I'm not going to talk about all of that because I think that's a whole podcast in its own. So for now, let's just stick with the word personalization. And, I think we have to try and not forget that personalization doesn't happen on its own, right? So there's no silver bullet platform that will deliver it for you without the right data, without the right team that's driving the thinking, the implementation, the execution of your personalization strategy. And there are lots of reasons why you might not tackle personalization because you don't have the right data. You think it's too hard. You don't believe that the return on investment is there. Again, what is the definition of personalization? I've just given you, 4 or 5 different titles that it might have, and it takes time, takes effort, takes budget, and to be honest, it requires a sprinkling of faith in some instances, right? To just kind of say that, this, at the end of the day, this works. But I think at the end of the day, we have to bear in mind a phrase that I've been using for the last 2-3 years, which is personalization without purpose is pointless, right? So put simply, unless it's solving a problem or meeting a desire from the customer's perspective, personalization and by extension, right, a loyalty scheme is pointless. If it offers no value to the customer, then it's of no value, full stop. We have to think about what the customer needs at that stage of the customer journey on the channel that they're wanting to have that need fulfilled. Are they researching online? Are they buying in store? Are they returning a product through the post? So it's not about personalizing just because the tech allows you to personalize. There's an author called Laurent Bedlan who uses this term called cruel optimism. And it's this thing around cruel optimism exists when something that you desire is actually an obstacle to you flourishing, right? So marketeers often have that relationship with tech, yeah? So we see this new shiny toy that starts to dictate what we do rather than allow the customer needs to dictate the path, right? We end up serving the tech, not the customer.
True. I've seen it many times where you want to use technology to enhance your possibilities, but in fact you are limiting yourself just to the tech that you have. You very often you rarely go beyond the tech.
Yeah, and it's having all the tools that you have to find the right balance, the right equilibrium with personalization. So, can we under personalize? Yes, right. So if and I'm always hesitant to criticize what a brand is doing in terms of personalization because I don't know what's behind the scenes, right? I don't know, whether they have the right data, whether they have the capability to deliver this, right? But if we have the data and capability to add value to a part of the customer's journey or experience, then yes, I think you can, and you're not doing it, you can under personalize. I belong to a subscription loyalty program with Pretzler coffee shop, sandwich shops in the UK, who a couple of months ago rewarded me with a free pastry, right? But they needed to be redeemed by a certain date. So imagine my disappointment when they didn't send me a reminder to collect my pastry on the day that I needed to redeem it, right? So the next day after, I'd lost my pastry, which for a man who was born in the north of England, and we're quite tight with our money in some instances, right? Losing out on the pastry was important to me. There's another coffee in the UK, so Caffè Nero. They send me a monthly statement of the coffee that I've drunk that month. For the last 2 months, they've actually let me know that I haven't drunk any coffee with them. But there's no prompt for me to, one, perhaps use my digital loyalty card if I'm buying coffee but I'm not using the card, or indeed an incentive for me to drink coffee with them because I legitimately haven't had coffee with them in the last 2 months. So again, they have the data and they're talking to me, but they're not in some way not using that data. Can we over personalize? Absolutely. I'd say yes again. I worked with a sports broadcaster who had a fantastic breadth of sport on offer, but they wanted to personalize the communications not just to the subscriber level, not just to the sport level, but to individual club level. We were talking about football at the time. So they wanted to personalize at Manchester United or Liverpool or Chelsea. And the data and the technology gave them the power to do this. So we ran a program with them, creating new content, and content isn't always the cheapest thing to produce. AI these days allows you to produce more content, but it doesn't allow you to really interview individuals properly. So extra content was expensive, but the engagement bombed. Even though we thought we were doing the right thing and personalizing at club level. But what they'd forgotten to consider was that why the subscribers had come to them, right? So in effect, they hadn't come to them because they wanted content at club level, because if they'd wanted that, they would have subscribed to Manchester United TV or Liverpool TV or Chelsea TV. They'd come to the broadcaster because of the breadth of content. And here we were effectively reducing the content or the breadth of content that we were putting on offer in front of them. And customers didn't like it. And in fact, if anything, the marketeers had failed to consider that ultimately the marketing KPIs should ladder up to the business KPI. And one of the big business KPIs, or one of the NPS questions or customer satisfaction questions that they had was, they asked the customers whether the customer was happy with the breadth of sports coverage and content that was on offer. And here was the marketing team limiting the breadth of content, right? So, they were focusing on their marketing KPI, not the business KPI. So I think you can over-personalize. Can you reach a point where return on investment you're getting by adding more levels of personalization just doesn't stack up? Yes, again. And sometimes that happens because you think you need to spend an extra, £100,000 on the next level up of technology, when in fact you don't need that. And do you always need personalization? No, I don't think you do. I've worked over the last 4 years in the Natura & Co group, with those, Aesop, Body Shop, Avon, and Natura Latin America. And I found a lot about, finding the right equilibrium and balance of personalization, depending actually on which brand you're working with at the time. And that's why these fundamental ideas around, what are the pillars of personalization that you need to talk about? That's where I think working through those 3 pillars of personalization are important depending on the brand that you're working in.
Great. So if you could actually tell us more about the 3 pillars. I wanted to ask about the purpose, because I really like what you've said, that personalization without purpose is pointless. So I wanted to ask you about, how to set the right purpose, because as you said, sometimes if you don't follow the right KPIs, you might be really successful, but in the worst way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, if we chat about these three pillars, and in today's world of the tech advancements that we've got, the availability of data, the way that AI can support you, I think it's really important that businesses kind of navigate that tightrope between personalized marketing and respecting individual privacy and free will and meeting customer needs. So that's where I think that you have to think about brand position, privacy, and this idea of free will within the context of personalization. So starting with brand position, right? So we all get it as marketeers. Brand positioning is that cornerstone of successful marketing, right? So a brand's position is its unique identity in the marketplace, and it's how it distinguishes itself from competitors. But sometimes when we chase personalization, brands often grapple with maintaining their position as a brand while catering to individual preferences, right? So striking the right balance, really, you need to think about, what personalization does and how we would enhance the brand rather than overshadow the brand's essence. So effective personalization seamlessly aligns with the brand's core values and promises, yeah. And, harnessing data and insights, tailoring messages and experiences and offers in some instances to cater to specific needs of a customer, so that personalization and the brand work hand in hand, really, fostering that profound connection, and ultimately builds loyalty, right? But because you trust the brand. So, for example, at Aesop, much of the content was not necessarily personalized, actually, to personalize to the individual. A substantial proportion of the messaging was, we talked about culture, right? And the environment, food, literature, which was important. It was part of the brand's DNA, if you like. And we wanted to talk about that. And we didn't feel the need that we wanted to, personalize that or water it down in any way. In fact, the emails that we sent out didn't even use name personalization. And it actually didn't have a detrimental effect of open rates, click-through rates. But when it came to the welcome journey, right, to a new customer, and product was part of that, and experience was part of that, 100% personalization came to the fore, right? So the welcome program that we produced came from the store of purchase, because we wanted to cement the relationship between the customer and the store, right? And it was a store where they had their first amazing, unique Aesopian experience. And if you ever get the chance to go into an Aesop store, you'll find that it's a great experience. And we wanted to build on that. And as we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, continue the conversation once the customer left the store. So we cemented that relationship. The how-tos that were part of the welcome program referred to the products that you'd bought in the store. We might suggest complementary products to the two that you'd already bought. And then we would talk about, asking for feedback if that set of products that we told you were right. And then ultimately, when we thought it was about time for you to replenish those products because you should have run out if you were using them the right way, if you'd use the how-to guides that we sent you in the welcome program, we'd remind you to replenish those products. The other brands in the portfolio, much more tailored and much more, what's the right word to use? Much more obvious in their use of personalization, right? Much more forceful than that, because that was right for their brand and the competitive set they were up against. Yeah. So again, that's branding position. I think is really important. Understanding that. Then we talk about that paramount concern of privacy in the digital age. Again, one of the three pillars. We all have now that vast quantities of data about customers, and so safeguarding that personal information has become imperative, right? So preserving privacies for us at Natura was not just an ethical obligation, but pivotal in cultivating trust and credibility with customers. And again, trust and credibility, cornerstone of loyalty going forward. You could argue that without trust, loyalty can't be achieved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fully agree with this.
So, we spent a lot of time at Natura developing a trust, ethics, and privacy framework for the 4 brands. We spent a lot of time, a lot of money working on that. And I framed the ambition in a particular way. So I said, at the moment, a lot of brands have brand value as a line item in the balance sheets. But imagine in 10 years' time that the quantity and quality of your data is also reflected on your balance sheets. And by quality, I think, quality is just, if not even more important than quantity. But quality is valued in terms of the depth of data that you have on your customers and the level of permissions that your customer has given you to use that data. Right? It's because I think that level of permissions is a real signifier of trust in the brand. So, if you go back to the marketing 101 and the 4 Ps of marketing, I know that some people talk about 7, but we haven't got time to talk about 7. But, product, price, promotion, place. So if you think about the beautiful architecture and the experience of an Aesop signature store, that's marketing, right? Beautiful range of products across the 4 brands in the group, marketing. Pricing available in Body Shop products, pricing. The promotions available to Avon customers, pricing. So all aspects of, that's all marketing, right? There's one P that customers mistrust so much that they have to read 10 pages of legal speak and sign away their lives before opting into that aspect of marketing. So it's not the place, right? Because no one reads T's and C's before they walk into a store. They assume it's going to be safe, right? With the product, you might read the ingredients list, but there's a certain assumption there that you're not going to do something that's going to poison me or be detrimental to my skin. And then you assume that from a pricing perspective, you assume that it's a fair price, and the price that you see on the product page is the price that you'll see in the basket when you pay for it. But when it comes to promotion and signing away and giving away a bit of data, that's where we kind of force customers to sign away their lives after reading these 10 pages. These 10 pages, in reality, no one really reads. Yeah. So it's about how do we get customers to trust us so much that, you know what, maybe they don't need to read the 10 pages of T's and C's before giving away their data. So I think that, you know, data privacy is really important. And I think that there are some stats that show that consumers around the world place more trust with companies that don't overuse the data that you've been given, but are actually but only ask for the data that's required and use it in the right way. Use it in the way that you said you're going to use it. So in terms of the data that you collect, I talk about this idea of minimum viable data, right? So as a brand, don't ask for any more data than you need to move the customer on to the next stage of the customer journey. So if you're in the store, you made a new purchase and you've created a profile, in reality, all you need to ask the customer for is a name and their preferred channel of communication. That's it, right? Because you know what they bought, you know where they bought it, you know how much they paid for it. I want to carry on the conversation outside of the store. So at Aesop, that's all we asked for. We asked for the name and an email address or mobile number. That was it. Then, the third pillar, I know we talked about this previously about, this notion of free will, within the realm of personalization. So, tailored marketing can, enhance the customer experience, and we need to respect. But I think we need to respect individuals' autonomy, right? So personalization really needs to be able to empower rather than manipulate or coerce customers into making a decision. So, at the moment, we have so much capability that in reality, it's really easy for us to say, well, I know what you bought today, I know what you bought yesterday, I can pretty much predict what you need to buy tomorrow, right? But when we do that, when we have that capability, what are we doing? Are we then using the technology to offer something that meets the customer need, or are we going to offer the customer something that is the best margin, right? So what are we doing this in the right way? And I think that personalization is great, but let's not lose that sense of serendipity that a customer might have by accidentally finding something that they may not have purchased before. And that's one of the beauty that sometimes the algorithms that sit behind Spotify or Netflix get criticized because they're not 100% right. But sometimes, it's quite good to discover something that you may not have watched or listened to previously, right? And sometimes that happens by accident. One of the joys of wandering through a supermarket is you stumble across a shelf that you find a product you find a product category that you've never come across before, and then you find specific products that you've never, or ingredients that you've, how do you use that? That's an amazing. I don't know how could I use that? It's that sense of exploration that I think that we don't want to lose when we use technology and data in such a clever way. I think. I hope.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you that sometimes those algorithms that you've mentioned, they actually create those bubbles, and they tend to imprison people within the bubble. But there is so much joy in actually exploring and finding out about new products, about new stuff. So it's true that you need to be able to point sometimes customers to like a completely new direction, and also give them the sense of like, okay, because otherwise I think that you might be even like burned out with the brand if you only get suggestions based on something that you have already experienced.
100%. I agree. Because you know that someone else will offer you something different, right? And that's where. And sometimes it is that novelty factor that actually gets you to move from one brand to another, just because you're seeing something new, right?
Right. Just because it's different and because it's new. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think by doing that, you start to engender that sense of trust that we want with customers, and it's not about the brand, it's about the customer. And I think that by doing that consistently, you start to build trust with the customer. And I think that consistency is really important. I remember there's a famous quote, I'm going to forget now who wrote it, but I think it's something like, consistency is the true foundation of trust, right? So either keep your promises or don't make them in the first place. Yeah, I think if we keep that in mind with personalization, that I think we're on the right path to gain trust and loyalty. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the role of personalization in the loyalty program then, because as you mentioned, it's about trust. So to me, loyalty program is actually a sort of like a platform to build trust. And thank you so much for sharing those tips, because it just gives you this sort of like a perspective on how to look at loyalty programs. But you've mentioned also like that loyalty programs should be ultimate personalization platforms or ultimate personalization programs, right? If you could elaborate on that, if you could actually...
The value of loyalty programs is that, they're the pinnacle of personalization, right? I think that's for me is self-evident. It's about, so loyalty programs allow brands to collect data at multiple touch points, whether it's purchase behavior, digital interactions, feedback. And this data, when you pull it together and start looking at it and taking insights from it, gives a real granular view of customer preferences, habits, and needs, right? So then when you use that data that you've collected, you can start to create, at a top level, those segment-specific offers. And a personalized loyalty program isn't just about, giving those points away for purchases. It's about providing value based on individual preferences. So, we talked about coffee earlier. So a coffee shop might offer a particular type of coffee at a discount or free every now and again to a customer in its segment, because that's the coffee that they frequently purchase from you. I think that what the loyalty program does in terms of personalization is it allows or encourages customers to provide feedback, you answer those surveys that you might want, participate in polls, and that dialogue just strengthens the brand-customer relationship, and again, gives you further personalization cues because you're collecting more information about customers. The tools that we have now, can integrate loyalty platforms with your marketing automation platform, so you can send, the timely reminders, offers, personalized messages, personalized experiences. Again, back to my days work selling, shower gels or body washes. I think that, someone who buys a specific body wash, we know that we should know, using the data that we've got, that they might be running out of that particular shower gel or body wash. And that's part of the function of a loyalty program as well, right? Because loyalty programs, personalization programs, subscription programs, right? They're not the same thing, but they are similar. They're all faces of a die that I think we need to consider. Personalization and loyalty programs, it's not just about product recommendations. It's about connecting emotionally with a product and making sure that and by emotional loyalty, I don't just mean sending a tailored happy birthday, because that's something that we've been doing for the last 10, 20 years, but it's about celebrating milestones of the customer journey, right? It's a year since you made your first transaction for us. It's 10 years since you first made your first product purchase with us. It's things like that I think that, again, build that emotional bond with customers, and I think allows you to remain relevant. Because I think that's one of the key things about a loyalty program and a personalization program or a CRM program. Ultimately, you have to use the data that you've got to remain relevant to the customer, right? It doesn't matter how many points you give away. If you're not talking about the right products, services, experiences, you're going to fall out of favor with a customer. It's about, personalization and loyalty, creating that, that well-hammered term, omni-channel, right? Creating the right omni-channel experience for customers, making sure that you know what customers are trying to do through different channels. They're not always making the purchase through that channel. Sometimes it's about using that channel for research, yeah. And another channel might be researching online but buying in store, or the other way around. It's about making sure that we know what the customers wanting to do, it's not always the same thing because customers are quite fickle and will do things at different times in different orders. It's about long-term relationship building. I think that's important. And again, that's what a loyalty program allows you to do, building on personalization. And ultimately, I think that personalization is about, increasing marketing effectiveness if it's done the right way and created in the right way. And you have to think about the framework that you're using. I remember, at Aesop, when we thought about customer and loyalty programs, we created this framework called the axes of recognition, right? Which is very simplistic, right? I have a degree in astrophysics, but I don't believe that things need to be rocket science when you're developing these programs. So quite simply, we asked very simple questions of ourselves and customers about the behaviors we wanted to recognize and in some way acknowledge. And I say acknowledge because it wasn't just about offering a reward, right? Because sometimes recognition was a simple thank you, right? Because that's a reward sometimes, just by saying thank you for making a purchase. So we looked at the why, the what, the when, the which, the how customers were buying. And if I give you an example, we looked at what customers were buying, and by looking at in depth at what customers were buying, we found a cohort of customers who were very loyal to a particular product, to the parsley seed. In fact, it was the parsley seed antioxidant serum, which is a bit of a mouthful, but a really good product. So we acknowledged those customers who'd been buying that product for the last 5-10 years religiously by involving those customers as part of the product development phase when we reformulated the product. So we got them to try the product, see what they felt about the product, its new way of being applied before it was launched, and took their feedback on board. And then, of course, they were offered access to the new product as a priority, right? Again, it's a very, very simple way of doing that. And I think that, a loyalty program, when executed correctly, isn't just that mechanism for rewarding, right, purchases. It's about the ultimate vehicle for understanding, engaging, and delivering value to each customer in I was about to say deeply personal way, but it's not. I think it's a deeply relevant way, right? Because I think relevancy is different to each customer. Yeah. And I think that's the way that you engender trust, loyalty, and long-term relationships, which I think in this world that, in a very competitive world where customers over the last 5-10 years in particular have become more promiscuous, if you like, and not just because they're more promiscuous inherently, but there is more choice, right? There is easier access to that choice because of the way you can buy digitally, right? So I think in that world, loyalty, engendering loyalty, retention and personalization, whatever you want to call it, has become even more important than it was 10, 20 years ago, even though we have been talking about it for 10, 20 years, if not longer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's true that we are also aware of the magnitude of products. And I think that we are also wired for exploration. So
agree.
I would say that like well-structured loyalty programs gives you this sort of like a feeling that we're in this together.
Yeah, and so and I think that exploration is great. I think is great. Guided exploration, right? So I think because part of our role as a brand is to help customers along that journey.
Yeah, and then as you said, this is great about the trust, or actually building trust between the brand and customers. That I trust the brand, that the brand will know what I need, acknowledge it, and also develop something new, but based on what I need, and so that at some point maybe I'm not even forced for exploring further because I know that I feel safe here.
Yes, yeah, 100%, and that's the ultimate goal, right? And but don't do all that work and then abuse that trust.
Oh yeah, it's true. So this is like a great power and great responsibility, right?
I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Conversation.
No, I haven't.
It's quite an old film. I might be showing my age here, Eric, right? But it came out in 1974. Francis Ford Coppola film. It has Gene Hackman in it and a very young Harrison Ford. Watch out, he's in there. But Gene Hackman plays a surveillance expert called Harry Cole, and he's been tasked by someone called the director, no one knows who this director is, to listen into this conversation between a man and a woman in this park. I think it's in San Francisco. And as he collects the information, he uses all this different technology so he can get the conversation as they move through the park. And you can see him in his room, in his lab at the end of the day, pulling in the different sources of data, right, to try and get a picture of what the conversation is and how he can fill the gaps in the conversation. And it's like that's what we do as marketers, right? We're kind of trying to...
Sure, totally makes sense, yeah.
He suddenly realizes that there might be some hidden agenda behind why the director, this chap called the director, is trying to piece this conversation together. And ultimately, he faces this moral dilemma around, why am I doing this, right? Am I collecting this information and then putting this couple's lives at risk? It's all based on one line in the film, which I'm not going to spoil.
Okay, cool. Appreciate that, because I'm going to watch the movie.
But ultimately, he realizes that he's misinterpreted this line. And that's what we do sometimes as marketers, right? So we'll often misinterpret what the customer is actually, what their mindset is at the time, because they might display certain behaviors, but we've misinterpreted it. It's a great film, and perhaps a bit philosophical, because hopefully we don't put any of our customers' lives at risk. But it's a great film. If you or any members of the audience get to watch it, definitely do. It's a real likeness for this balance between privacy and personalization that we're trying to achieve as marketers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to watch the movie. Thank you so much for recommending. Because when you said about misinterpreting, very often I misinterpret myself. I have doubts about the certain particular product that I need or I want. Do I want it or do I need it? Do I need this one? Is it So, yeah, it's deep.
Oh yeah, it can be.
I also wanted to ask you about maybe some common challenges, because you obviously explained to us the 3 pillars of personalization, and it's a huge help, because it just gives you the idea how to approach personalization. But I wanted to ask you about maybe some common challenges, any hurdles that loyalty managers might find when implementing personalized loyalty programs. So
I think the main challenge is understanding the customer journey, right? So I think that fundamentally, still a lot of organizations don't look at the basics of what a customer is trying to achieve through that customer journey, because that if I follow this tried and trusted route of, I understand the customer journey, right? I can start to understand what are the highs and lows of that customer journey, what the customer is trying to do at each stage. That then allows me to think about, okay, so what is my role as a brand at that point in the journey, and what do I need to deliver that high or improve that low that the customer has, right? So what is the right data that I need? Then ultimately, what is the right tech that I need to deliver this? And actually, fundamentally, it also helps you understand the organizational structure that you need to deliver on that as well. So think about journey, data, team that you need, and then the technology that you need. And I think if you follow that route, the numbers fall out of that route, because you start to understand from a high level, for example, what are the choke points in that customer journey, right? So you start to understand, I'm not converting enough prospects to customers. I'm not converting enough first-time customers to second-time customers. I'm not getting enough people buying 3 times a year, because that's where I think that we start to make real value and build out lifetime value for a customer, because we know that once they've shopped with us 3 times, they're with us for 5 years. And by understanding those choke points, again, by using that framework of, the axes of recognition, then you can start building out, well, what does my loyalty program need to look like? Because ultimately the loyalty program looks at customer behavior, rewards customer behavior, but we're all here to make money. So it helps you, by understanding those choke points, you understand where a loyalty program needs to intervene, if you like, to get to remove that choke point. Because you know that, by getting more customers to go from first to second time purchase, here's the value that I bring to the business, right? Everyone knows that one of the fundamental reasons why often loyalty programs don't succeed is because you haven't thought about the return that you're going to get from that loyalty program. So by following that process, I think that designing and then implementing a loyalty program becomes easier.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is about the future. And actually, if we look ahead, what trends do you anticipate shaping the future of personalization within loyalty programs? What do you think, how can loyalty managers prepare for what's coming next?
Well, so I think that we're getting very good at personalizing messaging, right? And personalizing content, right? And AI will certainly, and AI has been helping us for a while, right? So AI has been helping us with segmenting customers, right? With product recommendations, with understanding what is the right subject line to put in an email, right? So we've been doing that for a while. The scale at which, the speed at which we can do that now is even faster, right? And in fact, some of the content restrictions that we had 2 or 3 years ago to meet personalized, real, I hate to use the word, but hyper personalization, which I often agree with, but if we want to create really, more and more content that is specific to an individual, content is expensive, but AI will allow you to do that even more so at scale. So I think that certainly will help. So we're getting good at that kind of those parts of the personalization spectrum. I think the really interesting thing will be how over the next 5 years or so we can take personalization to the next level by further personalizing service, further personalizing the product itself, right? So, I think, now you can, some brands have done it more successfully than others, the likes of Adidas and Nike allow you to customize. And again, there's a fine line between customization and personalization. Customizing your sneakers, right? You can go into, there are some, I think you go into a rituals store, right? And they will allow you to personalize your hair care products, right? You can go, a station that allows you to personalize your shampoo, if you like, based on your needs and the scent that you want, the size of bottle that you want. That's just going to go to the next degree, right? You can now personalize subscription programs, right? Whether that's for vitamins, right? You can now, so vitamins or other well-being products, I think that personalization of products will become even more and more available over the next three to 5 years. If you think about what 3D printing can do for you, right? Imagine taking that and really creating unique products for a customer. That's, for me, is the next evolution of personalization and loyalty.
Thank you so much for everything we have covered so far, and I believe that we have covered everything we planned to. So, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
No, I think you're right. I think we've covered a lot. I think one last nugget is don't think you have to do the nth degree of personalization from day one, right? I think that's a mistake that people often make, which is, I haven't got everything, so I can't start. Personalization can actually start very, very simply with the data that you already have. Don't overcomplicate things, because by complicating things, you'll never get going. think about where you want to be in 2 years' time and work towards that. But start with what you've got.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the interview. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Greg.
Fantastic. Start with what you've got. This is exactly how you do it. Now, let's wrap up with a few action steps. First, if you like this episode, help us grow by leaving a positive review of the podcast. Second, let us know what you think by interacting with the Q&A feature or simply send us an email at podcast@openloyalty.io. Third, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter for more valuable content related to the podcast. Have a great day, everyone. The Loyalty Program Builders podcast is brought to you by the team at Open Loyalty, the world's most flexible loyalty software for creating personalized loyalty and gamification programs fast and at scale.